Hello, this is Masati. Welcome to my podcast, Exponential Intelligence. Today we're going to be talking about a highly controversial subject here on George Floyd, the gentleman who died in the hands of a police officer. So in this podcast I'll be discussing many things, but these three things. One, what's it all about? And what it's not all about. Two, the real reason on why this is happening. And then three, my analysis of the frequencies as I walk through the war zone firsthand. So we'll, as always, we'll just jump right into it, and especially as of late, the frequencies or my abilities have transformed quite a bit. So even listening to me starts to change your life. So go ahead, kick back, relax, get comfortable. Those who are driving, if you're sensitive, you might want to take, say, extra caution, because it does disorient individuals as you clean up to be your best possible self. And that's what exponential intelligence is all about, right? It's the fastest way to get rid of all the garbage that's holding you back so you can jump into your pure potential. It doesn't have to take decades or lifetimes through the process of psychology, motivation, visualization, NLP and all that stuff, right? Why not just reset ourselves, reprogram ourselves to be our best possible self? So George Floyd, and because of one black gentleman, not only my city, Minneapolis, but cities all around on fire. Right, total destruction, riots happening, and so on like that. And surface level, we're talking about, say, the freedom or the injustice of, say, blacks. And it's gotten to the point that, well, it's exploding. Right, and we've just had enough of it, or the black culture has had enough of it, and then we're fighting back to bring back that justice. But and as we look at it, or demanding justice, on the shady cops or shady politicians and all those things that allow us to haven't brought justice forward. Right? We're sick of it, whether you're a black or white individual. We want that justice happening. To really, say, making our blood boil on this injustice, and then. We see the tragedy, we understand the tragedy, and yes, obviously there's a loss, or maybe there's not, and I'll talk about that. But there's so many people that have come up to me and says, "Moss, is this a conspiracy theory? Is it, I don't know. Is it something that the government's doing? Is it a ploy? Is it fake?" So, and I'm going to tell you what some of these people have telling me. And again, I'm not here to discuss what's true or not true, because we can go through truth over and over and over and over again, like we have. We've done it for centuries, right? Always fighting for the truth or wanting the truth, and who's telling the truth, and that's where we get bound. Right, especially with the media, pitting, sides against each other, or whatever it might be. Bringing out the angst in people, so people can, stay tuned, especially nowadays. So, but from an XI standpoint, it doesn't fucking matter. It just doesn't matter. We've known the truth. Many know the truth already, right? But then if we don't act upon it, especially the leaders, the police force, the leaders, the politicians, and so on, if they're not acting out the truth, or if they're not in their truth, as they say, supposed to lead us, then what does it matter? Does truth really matter? No, of course not. So in a scenario, what we're doing, or what I'm all about, is, say, demanding the truth, not by fighting, not by going to court or anything like that, or rioting in this case, but by pushing in, say, or resonating at such a high frequency that the masses start to transform, and that's what's happening. Okay? I'm not going to be talking about that aspect of it, but you can join me on Moss's Meta Healing Sundays every Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Central Time to see how we change the world, right? Into, say, a higher level frequency where we're not, say, investigating or anything like that, but we're operating from a consciousness. And I'll talk about, say, the science and the mechanics on the second part of this. But for now, let's go through on some of the things that people are telling me, and again, this is what people are telling me, not me. So hopefully this video or this audio doesn't get, say, shut down like many other people who tell the truth come about. So I'm just reporting. So when this thing came out, some of the people were telling me, Moss, this feels like a scam. It doesn't feel true. And then give me the details on why it's not true. And some of the details is like, it's just so amazing that the scene, the video is just so clear. Right? And not for just to say a minute or two, but, I don't know how long, 9 minutes, 10 minutes, however long, and it's just like a perfect still shot. It's like almost like, they were telling me, it's like a movie setting. It's just right there and everything is clear. You can see what's happening, nobody's like moving into the camera. Nobody's like yelling. It's just like what's happening. And of course it could be, it might be, it might not be. I'm not here to say that. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to anybody else either, because I want actions. And actions, again, like I said, is not about finding the truth. So if you look at, say, other crime scenes, what this gentleman was telling me, or people who've taken videos of police officers, police officer interaction, one, it'd be shaky. In fact, there was a CNN, say, reporter, a group of CNN reporters. Now, this is just, we'll say, came from one single camera, but a group of CNN reporters reporting on the scene. They got arrested. I don't know if some of you saw that, but yeah, they got arrested by the police, and their camera, being a professional, was like really shaky. Right, they were shaky. They were moving around. You couldn't see the scene quite as well. And I'm sure they had a hell of a lot better camera than a freaking iPhone. But so it was like, well, that could be it. And then, and how do you the next question that comes up, and I'm just throwing it out there because people are just telling me, all this. So next question is like, you start a riot. And just days after, you start this riot, and it's so well planned. It's just amazing how well planned it is. Just from my knowledge, on say the mechanics, so you'd have to really frickin' understand how to burn a building down, or what parts of a building need to be set on fire to just bring the whole frickin' thing down in shambles. So, that's pretty interesting. And just to do it in a mass scale like that, not just in one city, but then several cities. And then, there's also stories running around of, say, George Soros, the guy who invented this process of division. Black Lives Matter as well. Again, it's a segregation situation where you're splitting, say, the masses, right? All those things pop up. Is that what's happening? Or is it, say, the Democrats, they don't want Trump to win, and they'll do any cost, to create this dysfunctional, say, economy. So that's running around as well. And I'm sure there's other conspiracy theories, but, just looking at, say, some of the logic that's there, and some of the scenes that I've seen and actually visited, that I'll tell you about later on. So all those things are out there, and and then the other thing, the big I guess, variable is that the two happen to know each other. They were on the same security detail many times over because they work for the same company. So I'm going, wow, that's kind of that might be strange to, I don't know, to you or maybe me. I don't know. I don't understand, say, the human mechanism sometimes at the lower levels. I mean, gosh, to kill somebody that you know and you work with, and obviously they seem like they had a good relationship, because otherwise, you would hear stories of them fighting or, arguing, especially if it's a black, a black white type situation, that anger obviously would carry through, right? So yeah, and so who knows? Is the guy really dead, or is it, say, just another propaganda by the deep state or the government or the Democrats or George Soros, or who knows? What's the other guy's name? The Rothschilds, or I guess the deep state. So I covered that, but like I said, I'm not here to discuss all that, right? Because at a higher level, it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter. Even if it was, say, set up, okay? And even if it wasn't set up, the coronavirus that many will forget about in a short time. They'll just transition, and it's like, fuck, coronavirus just disappeared, and things open up, and obviously they're not going to go back to normal, but it's like, well, what happened to this coronavirus that was such a dire situation? Again, all those things will show up, because the society or the public, because of news and how the news media, say, shifts or maybe controls us, if that's right to say. And again, this isn't even my thoughts. I'm just telling you other people's thoughts that are out there. What they talk about. People will forget what happened like 2-3 months ago. It's like they're onto something else different, right? And then a dire situation, like, say, for example, the wars that were just like spurring all over the world, right? In Korea, in Afghanistan, and in Iran, and Israel, and everything. It just like fucking disappeared. If they were, say, real, right? If they were real, if I was a warlord, okay, and again, this is my theory. This is somebody. There's tons of, say, letters that I get, and they're telling me, like, fuck, Moss, if I was a warlord, it would be the perfect time, because nobody's like watching. Right, nobody's really caring. Their observations, their focus is on something else. So, wouldn't that be a great time to strike? Again, I'm not here to go, yeah, this is it. This is, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, or I'm not any theorist. I just see what it is, and I know what it is. And some of you go, well, fuck, that's a pretty ego to go, I know what it is. Well, let me just explain that while we're on it. What the hell? I get results for people. Simple as that. I get results for people. So it's like, well, it's not your theory isn't proven, or what you do, exponential intelligence, isn't proven. Neither is nature. Neither is a ton of stuff of nature or anything that happens, in the universe. We know very little. And that we know of, that's scientifically, say, proven and okayed by scientists and, the leaders of this world and so on. They don't even know the little bit that they know, right? Because every 2-3 decades, they know another observation, and then they go, well, now scientists believe this because of X. So, I don't know why they would say hold on to that identity of like, well, you don't know anything because it hasn't been proven by us. Well, the things that you have proven are wrong anyway. So what I do actually say, like I said, gets results for people, right? Not just a few random cases, but shit, hundreds of, I don't know, close to 100,000 or more people. They get freaking results, and they get things fast. It's verifiable, it's measurable, and it works. So let me give you an example on, say, the level of truth that I'm talking about and I'm here for, and hopefully you are too, and maybe that's why you're listening to this podcast, because you don't care about the surface level stuff. It's like, I've got 6 kids, and they argue, the surface level. She did this, they did this, but at the deeper level, you can see what's going on, right? Or when couples argue, right? They argue about the stupidest things, but at the deeper level, there's an underlying tension that's going on, right? The surface level stuff is just that spark, that's all. In wars, it's the same thing, right? There's a surface level tension, and then an underlying, say, reason on what's going on. And that's what I'm interested, and not just interested, but I'm here to bring that truth out. Right? Like many of you understand that, those who have changed. So let me just give you a few examples, and then we'll go into, say, what's really happening. Okay. So let's take a deep breath in. And if you're new, again, this knowledge changes you. That's the level that this information is about. My frequencies, listening to me, changes you. Whether you believe it or not, it doesn't matter. It still works. Okay? You'll see. Again, it just doesn't matter. If you're around, say, a frequency, it changes you, whether you are in tune with it, whether you believe in it or not. There's a lot of, say, science behind it. Okay? So I'm not going to get into that. There's enough podcasts that I've done on that. Or, again, you can join me on Moss's Meta Healing Sundays. The level of truth that I talk about gets changes for people, and that's the level we want to look at on why this reality is experiencing what's happening. Again, right from the get-go, from the beginning of the year, with say, the fires happening, then COVID, and now this, right? It's quite an amazing year. And what's going to be happening in the future as well. And you'll see plenty more, by the way. So let me explain in, say, individual terms or individual experiences, and then we can just extrapolate that to, say, the bigger picture. Okay? Say, for example, and I'll just give you, say, some client stories. This individual wanted to make money, and it's like, they come to me, and his company actually came to me. He was a CEO, and he came to me, and it's like, Moss, we're successful, but me personally, and as a company, we just can't get over, say, that next rung. Can't get over the next hump. And I've gone to all the famous motivational speakers and success speakers. We've tried a lot of things, sales training, motivation, and all that, but we just can't do it. And finally, the guy basically gave up and came to me. And he's telling me his story, and I don't need to hear his story. I'm just going back in time, and going, well, did you ever realize the fact that you came from a wealthy family? And he goes, yeah, that's right. Well, of course, yeah, I came from a wealthy family. But when you were a kid, there was no love given to you. There was just total expectations, and you were never good enough you're never good enough for anything, right? And one, you've used that as a, say, success mechanism for you to go forward, and that's what you've done. But then your success, although quite successful, not feeling good enough or not feeling complete, you'll never feel complete if that pattern that you've instilled towards, say, your parents is not deleted. So his cause, although he might have think, well, shit, we need to increase profits by cutting down expenses and this, I need to go to a motivational trainer, a success trainer, or learn about money mechanisms. I need to hire a mentor. It's like, no. The underlying cause was what he hated to be successful. He hated the wealth that his family had because of how his parents treated him. So it was a double-edged sword for him. It's like, yeah, you want success to prove that you're worthy, but then when you get successful, you don't feel worthy. So how did that work for you? How did that equation work? It would be, say, a null equation. It just doesn't work out properly. So the more success that he would have, the more unworthiness he would have. So he would cap himself. So that's the real reason. Let me give you another reason, and you'll see time after time you get to see the real truth on why shit happens, and then we'll extrapolate that into why this shit is happening in today's society. Okay, another example is another individual example is this woman always losing her love relationships, right? You can never hold on to them for some reason, either, say, a death, or, they become alcoholic, or whatever it might be. Again, it's a loss of, say, a male in her life. And not just, say, an intimate person, but, say, a brother and so on. And so she's telling me all this, and she's telling me all what she's done, all the counseling, all the psychology, and all the visualization and prayer groups and all that she's done. It's like, well, God, and as I read her, I go, well, let's go to the real truth. And it goes way back. So about 10 generations back, as I scan her family, because I can read anybody, living, dead, no matter how important you think you are, leaders, whoever you are. If you're, I can read you. I can access, say, your log files and see what's going on. Some of you are spiritual, might go, your Akashic record goes way beyond that. But anyway, going back in time, it's like, well, your mom seems like she's lost her husband. She goes, yeah, her husband died, or her dad died at an early age. And then you go back, and it's like, well, gosh, your grandmother seems like she might have lost a son or a brother or something. It's like, oh yeah, her grandmother lost a son. And then it's like, you go further and further back, about 10 generations. It's like, well, the pattern started about 10 generations ago, and where for some reason, say, the group of men in the family, they would say hunting or something to that effect. They all went together to have a great time. They never came back. It was a devastating loss, which penetrated, say, the DNA mechanisms, and from that point on, generation after generation after generation, it would demonstrate some sort of loss. Now, some of you, it's like, well, that's hogwash. That can't be. There's a lot of studies on that. By the way, as war, people who've been in war, they're downline, 4 or 5 generations downline. They elicit PTSD symptoms, but they've never been in war. So there's other stories as well, health issues or whatever it might be. You get to the underlying, say, cause or the truth, and then things magically, say, shift and transform, just like what happened to the 2 examples that I gave you. In a very short time, within a matter of, say, days and into weeks, their life, say, changed dramatically. So how did that happen? And I'm just giving an example, and I'll relate it to, Floyd's example. How does that happen? Why does that happen? Again, the truth sets you free, right? But most of us don't realize the truth. And that's why shit happens over and over and over again. I mean, how many demonstrations have been happening? In the 50s, in the 60s, there's riots happening, right? And then in the 70s with the Black Panthers happening. And I'm sure it goes way back into the 1800s. If you go back far enough, there's prejudices, whether it's, blacks against, whites against black and vice versa, and then, or other countries, right? Other religions, right? All that prejudice. And it just keeps happening over and over and over again, right? Same situation happens as far as poverty goes. This happens over and over and over. No matter what we do, no matter how many, feed the starving children and whatever philanthropy that's out there, or trying to heal the world or save the world from diseases, through vaccinations and all that. Whether that stuff works or not, I'm not here to say, but if it's from the same consciousness, as Albert Einstein said, you can't resolve, and that's what I say as well, you can't solve a problem by a solution that is of the same consciousness. So time and time and time again, political leaders, say the deep state, whoever runs this country, or this world, and then right down to the individual, what we're doing is we're solving the problem with the same mechanisms of the problem. So you're going to instigate some variation of the problem or more of that problem. So that pattern in this consciousness has to stop. And that's what I'm here for. If you've ever been with me, many of you, obviously XRs, a ton of people, ton of XRs, you've noticed that, say, your life changes radically with me. So the reason why, again, I'll just reiterate, is that we get down to the real reason, the truth on what happens. Once we understand the truth, and once you understand, say, the higher version of who you are, well, it starts to eliminate, it starts to, say, move or release from the fabric of your life. So this release mechanism hasn't been, say, reached. The truth hasn't been reached as a human consciousness. Now, there's many XRs that are leaving the human consciousness into another consciousness. And by the way, that's what it's all about. Okay? Because it's too hard to create or fix the consciousness that we're in. It's just too hard. It's easier to go, forget this consciousness. It's too messed up. Let's redesign a new consciousness. So we have, and that many of you are experiencing that as well. So what does this have to do with George, right? So, well, it has everything to do with George, because no matter what event or situation happened, no matter why it's happened, whether it's a conspiracy theory or it really is happened. I mean, they're all conspiracy theories, are they not? Because nobody is going by the truth. Right? The top leaders say, and then the single individual on the street, they create these actions, but again, aren't they all conspiracy theories? Because if it's not true, then it would be a conspiracy theory. It's not based on truth. That's what a conspiracy theory is. Right? So both sides would be running a conspiracy theory. It's just many of us are focused and hinged on not what really changes people or changes society, but they're focused on the conspiracy, which begets more conspiracy. And I want to end this section with John F. Kennedy's quote: "Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable." Very, very powerful. So what happens at a deeper level, or an XI meaning of what uh, John F. Kennedy was talking about, is that the more and more you say suppress the truth, it has to say explode at some level, especially with this scenario happening now. It's very different than, say, the riots of yesteryear. It's very different than, say, the viruses or the pandemics of yesteryear. And the reason why is because the consciousness of this reality is changing.